Greetings! Welcome once more, the Dracovin Empire. It is I, your Lord Emperor Guide here at the Empire, Tantus Narav and Dracovin, ready to dive headfirst with you back into the world of darkness. Yes, we're going to be learning about another group from Mage, another craft. Or are they from Mage? Oh. Technically speaking, they are mages. But they're also hang around with vampires. Yes, we're going to be talking about the Itarrajana today. It's going to be interesting in diving deep and learning all about them. Of course, as your host, guide, and emperor here, I am willing to take you there, opening up a dimensional portal to take us to the world of darkness to learn about it. You will just have to take my hand, but before you do, hey, a little tip would help. Remember, make sure you are subscribed here at the channel. Helps out a lot. And also you can always ring the bell and all those things. And of course, make sure you leave a comment. What do you think of the Itarrajana? And how would you run them? I'm going to ask that now. But we'll discuss that as we dive deeper as to why. That's a really important question here. Because they're mages. But they're hanging out with vampires. Well, they also are kind of Dark Ages mages. Yeah. Let's get going. The portal awaits. We have once again arrived to the world of darkness, but we're not just in any regular place, the world of darkness. No, no, no. We have dove deep into the lands of the dead and going to Enoch, the city of the dead, the first city, the place within the underworld now, all to learn about the group that the Itarrajana is members of. Tal'mahe'Ra. Now you can go see my Tal'mahe'Ra videos. Got them. They're old now. Probably have to update them at some point in time, but they're pretty good. But if you just want to learn about the Itarrajana, what's the best book for it? What's the best thing for mechanics on playing them? Kind of. They're decent mechanics. They're not perfect mechanics. I'll talk about that. And that is, of course, a vampire book. A V20 book is probably your best bet right now. The Black Hand, A Guide to the Tal'mahe'Ra. This is from 2016. It gives you the best bet on investigating these things here. And it's one of those things is because they are tangentially related to vampire, you can't really do them in the 5th edition without having mage and vampire. We'll kind of get into it. Let's discuss them. And of course, Tal'mahe'Ra, True Black Hand, there's their symbol. The Itarrajana are a craft that is members of the Tal'mahe'Ra. They're known as the ghosts that haunt the wilds, the others. They originally descended from the Idren, which the Idren split up into them, and into some of the vampires that became the Tal'mahe'Ra. We'll talk about that as we kind of go in here. But you just have to understand, they are deeply connected with the Tal'mahe'Ra in many ways. And the Tal'mahe'Ra are not just the Idren or the Itarrajana. They are more than that. The death cult of Enoch. There are clans which are a member of it. Old Clan Semiche, Nagaraja, Danava, True Bruja. These are facts that we kind of, can't get away from. Let's talk about them and understand the basics. Let's dive into the simplicity of it. They're Padagrim. So the fact is, we have to look back at the foundation of their beliefs. Itarrajana sorcery has basically been very well unchanged since the foundation of the True Black Hand. Its foundation is their dharma. Till Gehenna, it is their duty to guard Enoch. Foundation being an old term for old magic. They bring the good death to those who have earned it. Death is a purifying force, and by achieving balance of life and death within one's soul, one can achieve enlightenment. They believe, unless they are chosen for the embrace, they will continue to reincarnate within a sect until their duties, to do their duties until Gehenna finally comes. The vampire end of the world. Now, why is this character here related to them and interesting? Because their entire culture originates in the Indian subcontinent, within India itself. Yeah, it's a fact that their magic system is based upon that. And certainly speaking as today, because the Tal'mahe'Ra, the True Black Hand, has evolved beyond just groups connected with that, with India. There are more than there. But there is this idea of this death foci and materials are within India's origins. A lot of the mantras, graveside sites, the various drugs they use to induce death rite stakes, yantras, mandalas, shrouds, weapons, bones, all these kind of things deal with a lot of the cultures within India, especially very older ones. And though, again, we have had some evolution, there is this kind of deep embrace, vampires, of the culture that is there within their belief system and the way they go. But it also means that we have to understand being in Enoch and connected to the realm of the dead means they don't have to worry about paradox the same way. They are an archaic paradigm. And also, they do have to worry about another problem, another edge of this blade. They're not as good in certain ways than modern mages. They lack certain powers. The traditional spears of matter and time, they can't learn. They can't understand them. So, as if you want to break them down into sphere-like power, they're missing 2 spheres. Yeah. They just don't have 2 of the 9 spheres in their wheelhouse. To look at their history and how they're organized is an important part about this too. Because as they still are part of the Tal'mahe'Ra, they're a subgroup in it, you can almost say. And again, being a craft, they are their own thing in little bits. So we have to turn back to the Himalayan Wars. And just as to kind of keep that simple, it was a series of conflicts between the Ascetic Brotherhood and the Euthanatos. So, I never say their name. Akashic Brotherhood. Sorry. I knew I was saying it wrong, and I had to correct myself. The war resulted in the unification of the Euthanatoi and the formation of the Al-i-Batin. But a group of Idrin traveled west in search of new powers that could help overthrow the Akashayana and prove their worth to the fellow cultist. The Akashayana, another name for the Akashic Brotherhood. So they were trying to get rid of them. And again, being descendants from the Idrin, which are a group that were part of what would become the Euthanatoi eventually, this was a proto-group that's part of it. So we see these proto-Euthanatoi having their war with the, in the Himalaya Wars, group travels west. They encounter a mummy, Inohaten, I'm probably butchering his name a little bit, who is himself a powerful sorcerer and keeper of guarded rubrics. He exchanged his mystic knowledge, and the Idrins helped him with a project that he had. And basically, going to a ghostly version, basically protecting the rubrics and a ghostly version of Enoch from the followers of Set. So this is connecting back to Enoch already, the vampire first city, and its ghost version in the land of the dead, witches exist. And so, yeah, this in a way brought about the Tal'mahe'Ra. It was part of their origin, which we'll kind of get into. The Idrin agreed, gave themselves the new name, Tal'mahe'Ra. Here's where the original Idrin kind of come in as part of this, where they transform themselves into liches or the Nagaraja. So again, I had a video on the Nagaraja vampires, the flesh-eating vampires. I've kind of talked about them. You can turn to them. They are kind of in a lot of places, Tal'mahe'Ra, Hekta, and V5 and Independent beforehand. But the other part of it is Lich, which is different from liches like we'd think about in something like Dungeons & Dragons, the, undead spellcasters. Those exist. That's a different thing. But they're both said the same thing here. One has its Liche. That's the actual mage one in World of Darkness. We'll have to talk about that in the future. But it's Lich, the one that you'd have in, D&D and stuff like that. That's here. Anyway, the liches are basically kind of turned themselves into that kind of thing as we think about undead things. They've succumbed to Johor, which is basically merging with the underworld itself in a lot of ways. You resonate with death energy, kind of like quiet, kind of like marauders. There's like 3 of them at a time. Basically, if one wants to join one of them, you have to destroy one of the current ones. These beings here are different than with vampires, because the vampires embrace destroys the spark, basically the avatar of a mage in the cosmic alignment. Basically, these are a little bit different here. Anyway, they're advisors in the underworld. So yeah, so they kind of changed into these different beings and began to teach mortal apprentices their Padagrim. So the young craft of mages that came out of this group that was forming and developing the Tal'mahe'Ra named themselves the Itarrajana. Here's where they came about. Basically, the Tal'mahe'Ra forms using its all the different things that had to come together, and in result of the Tal'mahe'Ra, because there was some mage connections to it, they taught some people that formed this splinter group. So today, we see many Itarrajana trained in Enoch, the city in the land of the dead. Most go crazy, but some do not, and oftentimes become blood familiars to the kindred of the sect. Because it allows the vampires to have a taste of channeled awakened magic, and to be able to somehow use it through their servants. Yes, ghouls can be mages. So, those Itarrajana, which aren't blood familiars, are ghouls. Though those ghouls can go through periods of abstaining from blood in order to raise their foundation, because they have to kind of disconnect from the blood and abstain from it for a period of time, kind of suffer through that kind of effects of that in order to strengthen their magical abilities. The vampire blood, which grants them additional powers, interferes with the ability to strengthen their own spirit. It doesn't mean that they can't, have their core of mage stuff they can still do while they have vampire stuff, but basically, in order to power up your mage stuff, you got to temporarily suppress your vampire stuff as a ghoul. So yeah, all Itarrajana are members of the Tal'mahe'Ra. Many are ghouled. There are some revenants among them. Basically, biological ghouls. They've had children, and, those children are born as ghouls, almost are kind of like ghouls. That's what revenants are. And some are embraced, but because that destroys the avatar, I would assume it's, for very certain reasons, or perhaps they have a they're much more better at the vampiric powers and stuff than they are the mage powers. So there's probably good reasons behind it, but it's rare because of that. Because it cuts you off from vampire powers. And one of the most valuable services that the Itarrajana can perform for the true Black Hand is, of course, the rite of opening the nihilistic gates between Enoch and the Skinlands. Yeah, they don't have to bypass the Tempest there. What the hell does that all mean? In order to get to the land of the dead, you have to pass through the Tempest. Basically the barrier where all the souls churn and go like that. It's very difficult. They can cheat their way past it. They can go from Skinlands, aka the living world, to Enoch very easily. I think it's something I didn't really consider in all my old videos about the Tal'mahe'Ra, that they're using mages to cheat their way in. It's a really interesting idea, and it makes sense. But yeah. And it is important to note that all this hinders on the fact that Enoch is still around. So what do I mean by that? The Itarrajana are dove into very deeply in 2016. But this is post a lot of the very apocalyptic things that happened. We know that Enoch, there was a storyline that was destroyed, but we still know that it suffered very much so for things like the Sixth Great Maelstrom. It happened. The Sixth Great Maelstrom was a gigantic problem with raids that happened in 1999. things went bad. And I'm sure things in Enoch and for the Tal'mahe'Ra didn't go well, because the Tal'mahe'Ra survived that, but went through some stuff in the V20 timeline. Again, we don't really have updates of it. We know things like the certain groups now have joined, of course, with other things like Hekta. The members of the Nagaraja, I'm sure majority of them went with the Hekta after what had happened, perhaps being driven out of Tal'mahe'Ra with the destruction that happened at Bract through Enoch and with the Sixth Great Maelstrom, because I'm sure the Shadow City did not fare well during that entire thing. I don't think it's completely destroyed, but then it also says how much of the Itarrajana remains. Was it those that perhaps were in the mortal realm at the time? But again, it's also like, I'm curious as to how their magic works, because we have an important note thing here. Their sorcery, their magic, is patterned after the magic of Dark Ages mage, with its pillars and foundation reflecting that ancient origins. They are a Dark Ages sect in the modern age that gets away with it because they oftentimes are the land of the dead. And learn about that there. And many of them are ghouls. Guess what? Ghouls probably make them exempt from paradox then. Yeah. Not all of them are ghouls. You have to keep that in mind. But it's this fascinating thing of they are a cross between vampire and mage that has history with mage, but also deep history with vampire. Itarrajana are probably very hard to play. I think V20 gives a very simplified version of it that's more vampire related. I would say that. But if you really want to build on how they should be played, you're going to need a Dark Ages Mage book, you're going to need the M20 book, and you're going to need the V20 book. And come up with something that works in between there. It's fun, but a mess. And that's why I loved learning about and diving into these guys. And I hope you enjoyed kind of finding out about them. It, again, fits in with some of my older videos, especially some of my older vampire videos, which might need updates at this point in time. Some of them probably do, some of them probably don't. I'll get to them eventually when I'm done some of these other World of Darkness ones. Cough, cough. But, yeah, it's this fascinating thing of where mage and vampire meet. The Itarrajana. It's probably the best way I've said it the entire day. But thank you for joining me today and diving into this very interesting group of mages. Because again, yeah, a lot of them are ghouls or revenants. Not all of them. Some of them are just normal mortals that happen to not go insane when going to the land of the dead and training there. You usually go to the land of the dead or Enoch after you've become a mage. No. They're there training and learning. You can see why they kind of go crazy. But if you want to see more of my things, please do join me. Hey, I record all these things live on Twitch. All the recordings go up on YouTube then. Either place is a great place to support me. If you're on that YouTube, hey, remember that subscription and let me know what you think of this. How would you build this? Would you just keep it simple, like using the vampire stats? Would you build something of a mage using, the Dark Ages stuff? Would you do like a modern mage that doesn't have access to matter or time? I'm curious as to the direction you would take to playing Itarrajana. And would you go the I'm also a ghoul route, or would it just be the mortal route? Which would you want to play, and which would you probably approve in whatever games you're running? I'm curious. Other things over on Twitch, definitely a lot of gaming and stuff over there, and stuff you can check out live. I have social media linked below. Discord's the best of them all. And yeah, I'll just leave it there. Remember to check out my live plays, whether old ones like Legacies of Pain, my old vampire game, or newer ones like Fall of Avenswald, the one I have currently going Wednesdays at 8, and discussing tabletop. So it's a great place to see talks about a lot of things and news of the week. All right, everybody, I'm going to get going. Until the next time, I bid all of you a deep and wonderful farewell.